Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Abigail Grazel. I am a senior coordinator at InterExchange for the Career Training USA department. And thank you, all of you, for joining us for this webinar on finding an internship and applying for the J1 intern and trainee visa. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. This webinar will be recorded, so you will get a copy of the recording after the webinar is over. So, take some notes, but don't worry about taking frantic notes because you will be able to go back and replay the webinar and see anything you may have missed. Also, there should be a chat box there. Feel free to type in any questions that you might have, and I'm happy to answer them at the end of the presentation as well. You are all muted, so you will have to type your question, but I'm happy, like I said, to look at those afterwards. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and get started. There we go. So here's just an overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm just going to go over, who we are, who is InterExchange. We'll talk a little bit about what the J1 intern and trainee visas are, and then who is eligible for those visas. And then we'll give you tips on how to find an internship in the United States, and then go over how you apply for a visa once you have that internship. So just kind of an overview of the whole process to give you tips on how you can participate in this program as a student. So to start a little bit about InterExchange, about who we are. So we are a nonprofit organization, and our goal is to promote cross-cultural awareness, cultural exchange programs. So we do have a variety of programs you can see at the bottom there. We have an au pair program, a work and travel camp. So these are all different J1 exchange categories. I am in the Career Training USA department, and we specialize in internships in the United States. So we do have a lot of experience in this field, and are really dedicated to the cultural exchange aspects of the program. So why would you intern abroad in the United States? So why would you want to come do this in the first place? So these are just some examples of responses we often hear from participants who have participated in the program. Ideally, they want to increase their knowledge of U.S. culture and intercultural communication skills. So, getting an international experience really adds to your skill set and your resume. And it also is good personally. It is a good way to grow yourself and experience something new. And also, it's a way to experience the U.S. outside of, the typical movies or TV that you see. You kind of get to have a real life experience. You learn flexibility, independence, self-confidence. So those are, examples of personal growth. And then, you will get access to a global market that you maybe wouldn't have access to in your home country. So it is another way to experience different types of workplaces and also grow your network to help you in the future as well. The US is also really big on new technology and methodology. So again, you kind of maybe will be exposed to some other exciting advances that you maybe wouldn't have been exposed to in your own country. So what are the J1 intern and trainee visas? So, what are these visas that we're talking about? So as I mentioned, there are multiple different kind of J1 visa categories. So, au pair is one example, a camp program is one example. So when you're thinking of a J1 visa, you need to think of the specific category that you want to come for, to the United States for. But the J1 visa overall they are temporary non-immigrant visas for individuals to come and do study or work-based exchange programs. So they really are cultural exchange visas, and that's their primary focus. And a J1 visa is required for any US internship. So you're not able to come to the US on an ESTA or anything like that to do an internship. You do need to get a J1 visa to participate in an internship. What it's not is it's not a work visa or for ordinary employment. So you are coming to the US to get training and to learn and to have cultural exchange. You're not coming just to work. And it's not a pathway to residency, citizenship, or other visas. So it really is a temporary visa for the length of your program and your internship. And then you can return to your home country and take what you learned back to Canada with you. So, what do participants and host employers get out of this program? So why would you want to do this? Why do hosts want to do this? So for participants, kind of what we talked about before, it is a great way to gain practical skills and experience, in your academic field. You can learn US business practices, have a better understanding of US culture and society. So there really are a lot of benefits of participating in this program. And then you can return home and share what you learned and use that in your career back home as well. Host employers, they also get a cultural exchange experience when you come to train with their company. So they're going to learn more about your country, your culture, and you do bring a fresh perspective as well. So, they are getting a lot out of this program as well. It's a great way for their US employees to learn about other cultures and have a different perspective. They're able to develop an international network. So, when you go back to your home country, you have a connection in the US, but they also have a connection with you in Canada. So it's a great way just for everyone to develop their network. It is also great for host employers to help incorporate you into the local community. So, the hosts are there to train you in your field, but they're also there to help you, get exposure to US culture and really get yourself involved in the local community. So as I mentioned, there are multiple types of J1 intern visas. In the Career Training USA department, we sponsor 2 of the categories of the J1 visa. So the 2 categories are intern and trainee. They really are very similar programs with just a few minor differences between qualifications and the length of time you can be in the US. So I know many of you are at university currently. So if you're a student or recent graduate, so if you're within 12 months of graduating with your degree, then you would most likely qualify as an intern. So interns can come to the US for up to 12 months. And any internship you do in the United States does need to be related to your field of study. So if you're studying fashion at university, you would need to come to the US to do a fashion internship. If you're studying chemistry, you would need to come and do a chemistry internship as well. So, it does need to be focused on what you are studying. So if you're studying, chemistry, you couldn't then do a fashion internship in the United States. So it does have to be directly related. Most of our interns are paid, but if you find a host company that can't pay you, you can be unpaid as an intern if your program will be less than 6 months. So that's just something to keep in mind, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about searching for internships. But again, you can be paid, you are allowed to be paid, but it's also okay if you're unpaid if you come for a shorter internship. The internship can start at any time of the year, and a training plan is required as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about the training plan later on in the presentation as well, but that's something your host company would develop to describe what you'll be doing during the internship. The trainee program is very similar to the internship program. The only difference is this is for people who are maybe a little bit farther along in their career. So you must have a degree, and then you must also have at least 1 year of professional experience. So if it's been over 12 months since you graduated, but you still want to come to the US for a training program, you just need to work in your home country for up to 1 year, and then you may qualify for the trainee program. And the training that you do in the US does need to be directly related to your professional experience. So whatever work you're doing for the year after you graduate, that's what you need to come to the US to get training in. So maybe you did a marketing degree, but you've been working as an accountant for the last year, then you would come and get an accounting training program in the United States. Trainees can be in the US for up to 18 months, unless you're coming as a culinary or hospitality participant. Those can only be 12 months maximum, regardless of the category, intern or trainee. But everyone else as a trainee can come for up to 18 months, and they must be paid. So as a trainee, you can't do any unpaid program. You are required to be paid by your host company for the duration of your program. And just like the intern, they can happen at any time of the year and a training plan is required. So what is a J1 visa sponsor? So InterExchange is a J1 visa sponsor. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're a nonprofit focused on cultural exchange, but we're also designated by the U.S. Department of State as a sponsoring organization. And that means we are allowed to verify you are eligible for the program. So essentially, when you submit your application to us, we take a look and make sure you qualify for the program and your host company qualifies for the program, and that it seems, legitimate and like a safe learning environment for you. So the U.S. State Department gives us this designation. It allows us to issue the documents you need to then go to the U.S. consulate or embassy and apply for a visa. So these are the forms DS 2019 and the DS 7002, which is the training plan. And then once you're in the US, we are also responsible for helping you. So any questions you might have, where your go-to, and then we're here for you throughout the program. So if you have any questions or issues, or your host company has any questions or issues, we are here for you for the duration of your time in the United States. And then this last bullet here is just to kind of help you understand the different terminology, as it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. But your host employer, so the company you're actually doing your internship with, they're referred to as your host employer. And they're not your visa sponsor. So InterExchange would be your visa sponsor. So your host is not in charge of your visa in any way. If something didn't work out and you had to leave your company, that doesn't necessarily mean your time in the US would end or that your visa would end, because InterExchange is your visa sponsor in charge of your visa. So just a little bit of a small distinction to keep in mind. So who is eligible to intern in the US? So we talked a little bit about these eligibilities already. I won't go fully into depth since we just talked about them, but basically, if you want to be an intern, you do need to be a current full-time student or have graduated within the last 12 months. And your internship does need to be directly related to your field of study. But what kind of internship can you do? So here we have the 6 different broad categories of internships that InterExchange is able to sponsor. So just so you know, there are other J1 visa sponsors, and some of them have different categories of internship that they're allowed to sponsor. So if you don't see your broad category listed here, you may be able to explore with another visa sponsor. But InterExchange, we are able to sponsor these 6 categories. Under these categories, there are more specific fields that you would then select. But this just kind of gives you an idea of the different areas that we're able to sponsor. This does cover a lot, and I know that you have a broad range of studies at your university. So hopefully, you are under one of these categories and would be able to do an internship with InterExchange. But arts and culture, business, so marketing, all of the STEM fields, so math, science, engineering, that sort of thing, we are able to sponsor those types of programs. So what types of internships can't you do? So there are specific requirements of what you can and can't do on this program. So we are not able to sponsor any programs for any unskilled or casual labor positions. An example would be a fast food restaurant. That's not an internship that we're able to sponsor, as that would most likely be more work related rather than training. Childcare or elder care. So really, you can't come and do any caregiving responsibilities. So no internship related to caregiving of any kind. Also, anything that you would have contact with patients. So, we can't do any hospital, like clinical work type of internships, social work or patient care, or even animal care, so veterinary care. We can't do any of those types of internships. The only times that we're able to do like medical or sponsor hospital-based internships is if you're doing research. So if it's really focused on research and the science behind it, and you wouldn't have any contact with patients, then that would be okay. But you can't have any patient contact on this program. And then each sponsor does have their own kind of requirements of things that they've outlined of what they're able to sponsor and not able to sponsor. So you will want to, on our website, for example, we have a list of things you can take a closer look at, of things we don't allow on our program, and each sponsor may have slightly different requirements and prohibitions. So you'll want to take a look at those. What type of company can host you? So really the internships that you need to be looking for while you're in the US need to be professional internships. So you need to have a company that has a professional space. So it needs to be an office, or if you're doing a hospitality program like a restaurant or a hotel, it cannot be a home-based business. Also, for the most part, you really can't do remote work. You do need to be primarily in an office in person, with a little bit of flexibility for small remote work. But again, it needs to be a professional space, office-based internship. The host needs to have experienced staff to help you achieve, your objectives. So they need to have someone there in your field that you're studying who can train you. So, if you're coming and you're doing a marketing program, they need to have a marketing department or a marketing supervisor who's then going to teach you essentially their role, or what they do as the marketing staff. You need to have continuous on-site supervision and mentoring. So again, mostly in person with someone there, the person who's experienced in your field, there to help train you and mentor you. It can't be ordinary work purposes. Again, you can't just be filling a role. You can't come to do a job. It does need to be training, and you need to get that training from experienced staff. And your host does need to abide by all health and safety laws as well. So what should the training plan include? So I briefly mentioned the training plan earlier. So this is a document that is required for all host employers to write. It is State Department required. So this is not an InterExchange document. It is a document that all host companies in the United States are required to complete for their J1 intern or trainee. So the training plan, basically, think of it like a syllabus for your internship. So it's where the host company is going to outline what they're going to be teaching you for the duration of your program. So it does need to show structured and guided work-based learning, and it needs to really be tailored to you, your skills, what you're hoping to learn. And it needs to show that there's a balance between your learning opportunities and your contributions to the host organization. So again, we want to make sure that it benefits you, and that you're learning something, and that you're not just contributing to the organization alone, as that would be a job rather than training. It does have to be full-time, so J1 program requirements state that all J1 interns and trainees have to train for a minimum of 32 hours per week. We do cap it at 45 hours per week, so that you have time outside of the workplace to experience US culture, but it does need to be that full-time 32 to 45 hours per week. And then the host in the training plan also has to show that they have a plan to help engage you in US culture and show you things both in and out of the office of how you're going to engage in US culture. So again, this is a document that your host would mainly write, kind of showing what they're going to offer you. InterExchange does have a guide to help your host complete this. So once you get to that stage, I recommend checking that out, because we do help kind of walk them through what each question should look like with their response. So can your internship be paid? And this does get asked a lot of us. The answer is yes, your internship can be paid. And in fact, most of our interns are paid. So in 2023, 82% of our participants received financial compensation. So for the most part, you hopefully will receive payment. And any programs that are longer than 6 months always have to be paid at least the local minimum wage of wherever you're interning. As I mentioned before, if you're coming as an intern and your program is going to be shorter than 6 months, you could possibly be unpaid, but it does need to meet the Department of Labor's criteria for unpaid internships. Something else you can also ask your host if they're maybe not able to pay you is if they have any non-monetary compensation that they're able to offer you. For example, if you're going to be based in New York City, maybe they can give you a transit card, and that would help offset expenses a little bit, even if you're not necessarily receiving payment. But we'll talk a little bit more about this as we discuss searching for internships, but you know, compensation is something you want to think about as you're looking for internships and kind of thinking what you can afford and what you can't afford. But a good news is that most of our participants do receive payment during their internship. Okay, we're going to take this a quick look at this video. This just gives a great example of what an internship in the US may look like and kind of what you can expect if you come to the US to do an internship. And this is an architecture firm that you'll kind of get a good look at.
My name is Itze. I come from the Netherlands. I work here at Rietveld Architects. It's an architectural firm in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, New York. I'm really enjoying the life I have here. Participating in an internship is the most important thing to do. I can recommend it to everyone. You learn so much by living for a few months in another country. You really develop yourself on a professional level, but maybe more on a personal level. It's like a mirror to experience and learn about your own culture that makes it a really valuable thing to do.
My name is Rijk Rietveld. Together with my wife, we have Rietveld Architects, and we're an architect's office in New York. Pretty early in the existence of our office, we decided we should just always have two places in the office for students. We do international work. We do high-tech buildings that are very green in Europe. And so that's important then to also have an international staff. So at one moment, I think last year, we had 9 nationalities in the office. So that's very modern and also very interesting for everybody. I think the relation with InterExchange has developed over time. I think we use them exclusively.
Rijk Rietveld, the supervisor here, he knows how it all works. Learning directly from him about how he approaches the design process. You get a lot of experience in that. You can't learn that on school. The only way you can learn that is being here at an office like this. There's a big difference between studying architecture and here you see much more the practical side of working at an architectural firm. I found my internship by myself, so it was more formality to let InterExchange arrange the forms for the visa, and that worked out really fine. I got a really great feeling about InterExchange. They sent me a handbook with some general information about what you could experience when you go abroad. They always emailed me really fast when I had some questions, so it worked out really fine.
It's very nice to work with. It's a quick learner. We're working right now on an old factory site in a city in the Netherlands. It's going to be affordable housing. It's an interesting concept, and he's been in the middle of developing that concept from the whole planning stage now into preliminary design. It's been an interesting exchange for everybody.
Okay. Yeah, so that's just a great example of kind of what you can expect, the kind of office environment that you would get in the United States. Open, it's going to play again. There we go. Okay, so we're kind of halfway through the presentation. I just want to remind you that there is a question box there, so feel free to type in any questions that you have, and I'm happy to answer those at the end. But now we're going to get into some internship search tips and what you should think about and how you should go about looking for an internship in the United States. So what are some things you should consider? So here are just some examples of what you should think about as you start your internship search. The first one is location. It's good to remember that the US is a very large country. Coming from Canada, you're probably aware of that, but it's good to remember that where you will be in the US will really have a big impact on what kind of experience you have. So do you want to come to a big city like New York, or do you want to come maybe to a smaller place that maybe you haven't exactly heard a lot about, but it would be a little bit more of a smaller city and a very different experience than if you were in a big city like New York. So there are a lot of different things to consider when you consider either one. You know, in a big city, you will maybe have more competition for housing or for internships, but you wouldn't really have to worry about public transit because, you know, there's going to be a lot of public transportation around and it may be easier to get around. If you come to a smaller place, you know, likely you may need a car, so that's something to consider, but maybe there'll be more housing options. It might be a little bit cheaper than living in a big city. So there are a lot of factors that you want to consider what will work best for you. Similarly is the program season and the program length. So, you know, do you want to come to the United States in the summer? Do you want to come for an entire year? You know, what will work best for you and your degree as well? You know, do you have degree requirements for how long you need an internship to be, or maybe you're not able to be away for a whole year? So again, those are just things you want to think about as you start your internship search. For J1 program purposes, you can do a program anywhere from 1 month up to 12 months as an intern. So, you know, anywhere in between, what really works for you, you can do any of those lengths. Some other things to think about: placement service versus self-placed. There are some placement services out there. Typically, you have to pay them, and often, you know, the internships are not as well tailored to you. So we do find that those who place themselves, who find their own internships, have the most satisfaction, get the most out of their program in the United States. So, you know, really think about take these tips that we're going to give you and really use that. We do really recommend finding your own internship. You'll also want to think about, you know, the fit of the company culture. Is it going to match the type of company that you will like and that you'll get the most out of? You know, those are things you want to think about as well. Do you want to come to a big company or maybe a smaller startup? You know, what will work for you, your requirements, and kind of what you're hoping to learn. And then again, you want to remember all of these eligibility requirements that we just talked about for the intern program. You know, you don't want to find an internship and then not be able to get the visa to come to the US because it doesn't meet the requirements. You know, for example, the host organization doesn't meet the requirements. So make sure to keep those in mind as you're searching for your internship in the United States. So how have InterExchange participants found an internship in the past? Here's just an example of some of those ways. As you can see, you know, the vast majority, 42% of our participants found their internship through a referral. So that just tells me that you really want to use your network as you're searching for internships because, you know, that's a great way to find an internship in the United States is through a friend, a family member, a past colleague. So you really want to tell everyone that you're looking for an internship, and you never know what you can find that way. The next biggest chunk is university. So your university is a great resource as you're searching for internships. They may have a career center who can help you. You know, they may have an alumni network as well that you can use and reach out to different alumni that maybe have connections or even work in the US now. You know, they often always, your professors are a great example of a resource you can use as well. They often have connections in their field. So you really want to ask around at your university as you're looking for, as you start your internship search. And then the other ways are cold calling hosts, finding an internship posting on the company website. So this is really just doing a lot of research and sending out a lot of applications and being persistent as you look for your internship. And then some other examples here are social media and, you know, a conference. So really just anything in your field that you do going forward as you're looking for your internship, you'll want to let everyone know and see kind of what comes out of that. So how have InterExchange participants found an internship? Here are just a couple more examples of quotes we got from previous interns on how they found their internship, just to kind of, spark some ideas for you as well. So for example, one participant was a culinary intern, and they knew they wanted to come to a Michelin star restaurant, and they knew they wanted to be in San Francisco. So that's what they researched online, and then they reached out to all the restaurants that they found through that research, and they ended up getting an internship from that. Another participant used their university's list of companies. So again, using your university is a great resource as you're looking for your internships. Someone had a family friend who worked in the finance industry in California, so they used their network in order to find their internship. And someone else used their professor, and they went to a virtual conference, and they met someone through a conference. So their professor, a conference, all of those are great examples of ways to find an internship. And I think the last one is social media. So social media is a great way as well. If you know that there's a company that you're super interested in, you want to intern with this company, if at all possible, follow them on social media, follow them on LinkedIn. Those are great ways to just be knowledgeable about the company. And then you'll be kind of one of the first to know once if they have any internship postings come available, you'll be able to know right away and be able to apply. So, follow them, be active on social media as you're starting this search. So here are just some examples of host employers that have hosted J1 interns through InterExchange in the past. This is in no way an exhaustive list, so this is just a very small sampling, but it gives you an example of the types of companies that you may be able to internship with. So here we have, a shipping company, a logistics company, all the way to a fashion company. We have a hotel chain, a nonprofit human rights organization, an AI firm, engineering. So very wide range of types of companies that you may be able to intern with, and kind of use this as inspiration as you start your search. So we have some tips from InterExchange interns in the past of some things you should consider as you're looking for internships. So the first three here really apply to kind of what I was just talking about recently or previously about, staying knowledgeable of the field. So you want to make sure that you are informed of any new advances, anything going on in your industry. If you know that there's companies you like, follow them on social media, read their blogs. You really want to stay informed. This will help you know if there are any, internship postings available, but it will also help you if you do get an internship, or if you do get an interview, excuse me. So if you get an interview, then the company's gonna wanna know that you are knowledgeable in their field and about their industry, and that you're excited about the possibility of an internship. And so staying knowledgeable on industry-specific topics, staying knowledgeable about the field and about the specific company will help you, help your enthusiasm come across and really help you in that interview as well, and hopefully help you get the internship. So it's just a good way to start, is to start doing research and stay up to date on all the latest news. You may want to pursue informational interviews. So these are, if you do have a contact or even someone in your home country who works in the field that you want to work in, or perhaps has the role that you want to have in the future, you can reach out to them and ask if you could interview them, more just for your own information. So you go, maybe you buy them a coffee, and then you have a prepared set of questions where you ask them, about their role, their day-to-day, what's hard about their role, maybe what they like the most, also what they did to get to their position. And it really kind of gives you more information about, if that's something that you would want to do in the future, maybe what steps you need to take to get there. And it also is a good way to have a connection in the field and in the industry, and kind of start to grow your network as well. Which we see from previous slides is a great way to get your internship. So it's something to consider, is maybe pursuing informational interviews, even if it's not with someone in the US, it can still help you over time to find a US internship. One intern recommended targeting smaller firms. So this was something we talked about if you want to come to a big company or a small company. You know, big companies may have a lot of resources, which may be great for you, but they are usually pretty set in their department. So you may just have one department and you will only intern in that one department. Smaller companies, you know, often employees have various roles within the company, or kind of a little bit of crossover between departments. So you may be able to learn, you know, more of a broad range of skills if you come to a smaller company. Also, sometimes with smaller companies, you're able, you know, if you send in your resume, maybe your email is going to go directly to the CEO or the hiring manager, since it is such a smaller place. So that's just something to consider as well as you're starting to look for your internship, is you might be able to, you know, sidetrack, you know, an HR department and go straight to the hiring manager if it's a smaller company. And then ask your professors. So we talked about that already. It's a great way to see if they have any networks or anyone they can recommend you to. Even if they don't, they may have recommendations on websites to use. So maybe there's specific industry-specific websites that your professors know more about than you may. So they may be able to direct you where to even start your search. The last tips here, first one is understand J1 visa rules. Again, you don't want to find an internship that you're not able to get a visa for, so make sure you do understand those as you're starting your search. Keep your social media professional. So usually once you apply for something, even an internship, the company is going to Google you. So you want to make sure that anything that they find when they Google your name is professional and something that you want them to see. So make sure you know, your social media doesn't have anything that would stop you from getting an internship in the future. Keep your resumes and cover letters up to date. We do have a great webinar recorded, I think, on our YouTube channel about writing US resumes and cover letters. So do check that out and it'll help you with your search as well. And then set up a document or spreadsheet to help you keep all of the details of the potential internships you've applied for. So this will help you keep track of where you've applied, you know, what the requirements are, what the position was for. So that way, you know, if you do hear back, you're able to remember where that internship was. And then during your, you know, in your cover letters, or if you get an interview, you want to highlight your unique perspective as an international intern. So, you know, when you come to an internship in the United States, you do have something different to offer than perhaps an American intern would. Since you are coming from a different country, you're going to see things differently, maybe have new perspectives to offer that, you know, American intern wouldn't catch onto. So that's really something that you want to highlight in your applications, is that you do have something different to offer. You are bringing cultural exchange to their office, which is great for everyone. And then you want to show you're motivated and passionate for the internship. So as we talked about, you know, staying up to date on the industry is a great way to do that. But if it's a company that you're really excited about, you should make sure that comes through in your application as well. And then follow up with a personalized thank you. Generally, a follow-up email is sufficient, but you do want to follow up and thank them for the time if you get an interview, for example. Okay, so finding an internship is really the first step of the process. Once you have that internship, you know, arguably that's the longest part of the process. So it can take a while sometimes to find that internship. Once you do, we're now going to talk a little bit about the J1 visa application process, just so you understand kind of the next steps you'll need to take before you can come to the US to actually do that internship. So we do recommend that you give yourself plenty of time. So hopefully all of you are kind of starting to think about maybe summer 2025 internships. If so, that's great. You should start your internship search now. It may seem a little early, but we have had some interns tell us it took up to 3 months to find their internship. So you'll want to, start that internship search and give yourself plenty of time to first find the internship and then for the visa application process as well. So first one is to find an internship. You then would want to, you would then need to apply for visa sponsorship. So this would be when you would submit your, complete your application online on the InterExchange website. And we'll talk a little bit about what is required for that in the next couple of slides. Then you would go through the application review process with InterExchange. It would also include an interview with one of InterExchange's staff and site visit of the host company's office if that's required. It's not required for all companies, but that would be part of the application review process. If we're able to approve you, then we would send you the documents electronically that you need for the visa. The good news for a lot of you is if you're a Canadian citizen, then you don't have to attend an embassy interview. So Canadians are lucky, they only need the DS 2019 form from a sponsor to come to the US. So they don't have to do the embassy interview. If you're not a Canadian citizen, you would need to go then to an embassy to apply for the actual visa sticker in your passport. Once you get that, then you're able to travel to the United States to do your internship. So how long does the visa process take? So I talked about starting to apply now. That's because the entire process from filling out your, once you have the internship, the actual visa application process takes about 6 to 8 weeks. So this is from filling out your application on the InterExchange website to then, if required, interviewing at the embassy and getting the visa sticker in your passport. So you do want to make sure to give yourself those full 6 to 8 weeks so you don't feel stressed before your internship start date. InterExchange, we do have one of the fastest review times of any J1 visa sponsor. Once you submit your completed application to us, we take an initial look at it in about a day or two. We maybe will send it back to you if something is missing or you need to make a small update, or maybe your host company needs to make some changes to their half of the application. Once it's complete, we do a full review within 10 days. So that full review includes the interview I mentioned, and includes us, looking over the application to make sure that both you and your host company meet the requirements of the program. So within 10 days, we'll give you an answer and then send you the documents you need for the visa process. Again, if you're Canadian, that's basically it. You're able to then come to the United States with the documents that we give to you. You just present them at the border. It's much easier. Otherwise, you would then need to interview at an embassy, and embassy wait times do vary based on time of year and location. So, they can be anywhere from 1 day to months, hopefully not, but, usually average, I feel like, is a 10-day wait or so for a visa interview at an embassy. So how do you go about applying? So once you have an internship offer in the United States, it would then be time to create your account on our website. So we have an app.interexchange.org. So you would create your account and then you would invite your host employer. So you would send an email to your supervisor and they would create their own account on our website. And then they would need to fill out information about their company. So on their side, it's like, typical company basics information. And we do require a workers' compensation certificate for all host companies. And then this is also where they would write the training plan. So that's the syllabus type document we talked about where they outline what you'll be doing, what they'll be teaching you when you're in the United States for your internship. So that's kind of all on the host side. And then on your side, the two applications kind of connect to make one application within our system. So you both do have to fill out information to apply. For the participant side, for your side, these are kind of the types of information you'll need to complete. So you'll need details about your education, what you're studying, if you have any work experience. This is especially important if you're applying as a trainee. And then, any previous US travel history. These are the types of things that you'll need to answer questions about. There's also 3 questions about, kind of what you're hoping to learn during the program. So they're just like mini essays, I guess. So the questions, we ask that they're about 4 to 6 sentences per response. So not very long, but something that you need to kind of outline what you're hoping to learn. You'll need to upload documents, and on the next slide, we'll talk about the types of documents you have to supply as part of your application. And then you would also read through the training plan that your host writes. So you want to make sure that you agree with the training they're going to be offering you. If you agree, you would sign it. You would need to pay the application fee, and then you would submit that to InterExchange to start the review process. So what documents would you need to include in your application? The first one is pretty easy. It's just a picture of your passport photo page. So you can just take a picture with your phone and upload it to the application. You would also need to provide a proof of funds document. So this is typically a bank statement or a bank letter showing your name or whoever's sponsoring you name. So sometimes the bank statement can come from your family member or guardian, your parents or guardian. So it needs to show the name, the date, the bank, and the amount available as well. And these are generally pretty easy to get, especially if it's already in English, and sometimes get a little bit more difficult if it's not in English, but we do have a template that you can use that you can just take to your bank and they can stamp it and sign, so that way you wouldn't have to have anything translated. All documents do have to be in English or translated before they're submitted to us. But proof of funds document, so that's something you would need to provide. Essentially, the proof of funds is to show that you have enough funds in case of an emergency, or if you have enough money for getting settled in the United States. So we do consider, if you're receiving payment from your host, we will take that into account, for the duration of your program. But we do need to see that you have initial settling in funds, because it sometimes is a couple of months before you start to receive a paycheck from your host. So that is a requirement for the program. We would then need to see documents from your university. So if you're a current student, we would need something that shows you're a full-time student, or if you recently graduated, we would need your graduation certificate, dated from within the last 12 months. If you're applying as an intern, we also need to see your course transcript. So this helps us determine if the courses that you're taking, the degree you're studying, is directly related to the internship you're applying to do. If you're applying as a trainee, so trainees, as you remember, have a degree, but they also have 1 year of work experience. So we would need to see 1 year degree and also a letter from your employer showing that you have that 1 year of work experience as well. And then there's a fee disclosure where you kind of sign off to say you understand the fees associated with the program. And we do have templates for a lot of these documents as well that you can use to kind of make it easier as you acquire these. And those are all available on our website. So how much does visa sponsorship cost? Here's an example of our 2024 fee and refund disclosure. Just some highlights to keep in mind is that the program cost depends on the length of your program. So a 1-month internship is going to be less expensive than a 12-month internship. So you will want to kind of take a look and see how long of an internship you're going to do, and then use that to determine how much your program fee will be. And just note that a resident of Canada will receive 100% off direct pricing in 2025. So our 2025 refund disclosure isn't available yet, but if you submit your application in 2024, these are the fees that you can expect. And then, you get $100 off the prices listed here, essentially. And we'll talk about, on the next slide, what's included in your InterExchange program. So the big one to keep in mind, and this is different from a lot of other sponsors, is those prices you just saw include accident and sickness insurance for the duration of your program. So it's not an additional fee on top of that. It is already included. This is something that's required for all J1 interns and trainees in the United States. They're all required to have this accident and sickness insurance that meets specific requirements set by the US State Department. So that is already included in your program with InterExchange, so it's not something that you would need to worry about. Those prices listed also already include the CVIS fee. So this is another required fee that all J1 interns and trainees are required to pay basically to the US government to be put into the government database for exchange visitors. So that fee we pay on your behalf to the Department of State. And so that CVIS fee is already included in those prices listed as well. And then it just includes, your application processing and then 24-hour emergency support for the duration of your program. So while you're in the US, however long that is, if you do have an emergency, you can reach out to someone at InterExchange and we're there to support you. We also have a lot of resources for, getting settled in the US, finding housing, cultural adjustment, that sort of thing. So those are also all available to you to help you adjust to the US culture during your internship. Okay, so that is the end. If you have any questions, do type those into the chat box now and I'll try to answer them. But in the meantime, this is our contact information. If you think of any questions in the future, please feel free to reach out to us. This is our team here. You can see we're a fairly small team. There's just 5 of us in the career training department. And if you reach out to any of us, we're happy to assist you with any questions that you may have. And after this, you will get a recording of this webinar, and we'll also send you additional resources that I've mentioned throughout, links to our website with the requirements, also links to some of the resources we discussed as well. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have and hope to see you in the US, for an internship. And as I mentioned, as a Canadian, it's really great and easy for you to come, once you're approved by InterExchange, you get to just come to the United States and you don't have to do that embassy visa process. So that's the great perk for you as well. Okay, well, how did we do on time? It looks like pretty good. It looks like I'm not seeing any questions come through. So in that case, we'll go ahead and conclude today. But as I mentioned, don't hesitate to reach out to us, training@interexchange.org, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may think of in the future. Thank you all.